The forest air was thick with the scent of pine and damp earth, a familiar comfort that Arya had learned to cling to in moments like these. Moments when the world seemed determined to remind her that she didn't belong. Her knees pressed into the cold ground, mud seeping through the worn fabric of her jeans as she knelt beside the creek. The water ran clear and fast, indifferent to her presence, indifferent to the bruises that decorated her arms like grotesque jewelry. She dipped her hands into the icy stream, watching as the blood, her blood, swirled away in crimson ribbons. Cursed, they called her. Abomination. Mistake. The words had lost their sting over the years, worn smooth like river stones from repetition. But that didn't mean they didn't leave marks. Different kinds of marks than the ones currently throbbing on her ribs. Arya lifted her shirt gently, wincing as the fabric peeled away from a particularly nasty scrape along her side. The punishment had been swift today. She'd made the mistake of walking too close to the Alpha's daughter during the morning gathering. Madison Silvermoon didn't need much of an excuse to remind Arya of her place in the pack hierarchy, which was to say, somewhere beneath the dirt and slightly above the worms. "You touched me with your filthy curse," Madison had hissed, her perfect features twisted with disgust. "Do you know what happens to things that touch me uninvited?" Arya had known. She'd known for years. But knowing didn't make the blows any easier to anticipate or the pain any less sharp. She splashed more water on her face, letting the cold shock her system back to the present. The sun was beginning its descent, painting the sky in shades of amber and rose. She needed to get back before dark, before they came looking for her. Being caught outside the pack boundaries after nightfall would mean more punishment, and her body was already screaming for rest. But something made her pause. A sound, low and guttural, barely audible over the rushing water. A groan of pain that seemed to emanate from the deeper part of the forest, where the trees grew so thick that sunlight became a distant memory. Arya's first instinct was to run. Nothing good ever came from investigating strange sounds in the woods. The Silvermoon Pack had enough horror stories to fill a library about pack members who'd wandered too far and encountered things that didn't take kindly to visitors. But the sound came again, and this time it was unmistakably a voice. A male voice, rough with agony. "Help!" The word was barely a whisper, carried on the evening breeze like a desperate prayer. Every logical part of Arya's brain told her to leave, to run back to the pack grounds, report what she'd heard, and let someone else deal with it. Someone stronger. Someone whose blood didn't carry a curse that made every pack member look at her like she was a disease waiting to spread. But Arya had never been good at listening to logic. She stood, her legs protesting the movement, and made her way toward the sound. The forest seemed to close in around her as she moved deeper, branches catching at her hair, and clothes like skeletal fingers trying to hold her back. The temperature dropped with each step, and she pulled her thin jacket tighter around her body. The smell hit her first. Copper and earth and something else. Something wild and powerful that made her wolf stir uneasily beneath her skin. Her wolf, the part of her that most of the pack claimed was as broken as her blood, pressed against her consciousness with unusual alertness. Danger, it seemed to whisper. Power. Alpha. Arya pushed through a final curtain of hanging moss and froze. A man lay sprawled against the base of an ancient oak tree, his body twisted at an angle that suggested he'd fallen from a great height, or been thrown. His clothes were torn, revealing a muscular torso that was currently decorated with wounds that made Arya's stomach turn. These weren't ordinary injuries. The gashes across his chest and arms were deep, edges blackened as if burned. Dark veins spread from each wound like corrupted roots, pulsing with a sickly energy that Arya could feel even from several feet away. Supernatural. These were supernatural wounds. The man's eyes were closed, his face pale beneath several days' worth of stubble. Even unconscious and bleeding, he radiated an aura of authority that made Arya want to simultaneously bow and run. This was an alpha. Not just any alpha, but one whose power seemed to vibrate in the very air around him. She should leave, right now. Walk away and forget she'd ever seen this. But those wounds, something about them made her chest tight with recognition. She'd seen similar injuries before, years ago, when a pack member had been attacked by a creature from the old stories. A creature that fed on wolf essence, leaving behind corruption that no healer could cleanse. That pack member had died screaming within hours. Arya took a hesitant step forward, then another. The man's breathing was shallow, each exhale rattling in his chest like dried leaves. His shirt was soaked with blood, so much blood that she couldn't understand how he was still alive. "Hey," she whispered, kneeling beside him. "Can you hear me?" No response. His skin was cold to the touch, clammy with the kind of sweat that came from a body fighting a losing battle. Arya's hands hovered over the worst of the wounds, the one directly over his heart. The blackened edges pulsed with dark energy, and she could actually see it spreading, millimeter by millimeter, toward his chest cavity, toward his heart. He was dying. Right here, right now, this powerful alpha was dying, and there was nothing she could do about it, except... Arya pulled back her sleeve, staring at the pale skin of her forearm, the skin that held blood everyone feared. Blood that had earned her a lifetime of hatred and isolation. Blood that had also, on one occasion many years ago, done something impossible. She'd been 7 years old. A young pup from her pack had gotten into a fight with a rabid fox, the infection spreading through his small body with terrifying speed. The pack healers had given up, said it was too late, the toxin too advanced. But Arya had snuck into the healing den that night, unable to bear the sound of the pup's mother sobbing. She'd cut her palm on a sharp rock, an accident really, and the blood had dripped onto the pup's infected wound. The reaction had been instantaneous. The infection had simply vanished, burned away as if it had never existed. The pup had lived, and Arya had been labeled cursed, because blood that could heal like that, blood that could interact with supernatural toxins, wasn't natural. It was dangerous. It was wrong. It was proof that something was broken inside her, something that made her less than the others. But right now, looking at this dying alpha, Arya wondered if maybe, just maybe, her curse could be someone else's salvation. She didn't have anything sharp with her. The small knife she usually carried had been confiscated during today's punishment. But there was a jagged piece of bark nearby, split from the oak during whatever battle had taken place here. Arya picked it up, her hand trembling. This was insane. Completely insane. She didn't even know who this man was. What if he woke up and killed her for touching him? What if the pack found out she'd used her blood on someone? What if... The alpha's breathing stuttered, stopping for one terrifying moment before resuming with a wet, labored sound. Arya pressed the sharp bark against her palm and pulled. The pain was sharp and immediate, blood welling up in a thin red line. She made a fist, squeezing, watching as the droplets formed and began to fall. "Please work," she whispered. "Please." She held her bleeding palm over the worst wound, the one over his heart, and let her blood drip directly into the corrupted gash. For a moment, nothing happened. Arya's blood simply mixed with his, disappearing into the torn flesh like water into sand. Then the wound began to glow. Arya jerked back, startled, but forced herself to stay close. A soft blue light emanated from where her blood had touched his injury, spreading outward in gentle waves. The blackened edges of the wound began to recede, the dark veins retreating like shadows before dawn. The alpha's body convulsed once, violently, and Arya scrambled backward in alarm. But he didn't wake. Instead, his breathing began to even out, the terrible rattling sound fading to something almost normal. Arya watched in amazement as the wound began to close. Not completely. It would leave a nasty scar. But the corruption was gone. The supernatural toxin that should have killed him within the hour was simply gone. Her blood had done it again. She should have felt triumphant, validated. But all Arya felt was a deep, bone-deep exhaustion and a growing sense of dread, because she'd just saved someone important, someone who would have questions when he woke up, questions she couldn't answer, didn't want to answer. Arya pressed her torn palm against her jacket, trying to stop the bleeding. She needed to leave, right now, before he woke up and before anyone else found them here. But as she stood to go, the alpha's hand shot out with impossible speed, wrapping around her ankle with a grip like iron. Arya gasped, looking down to find his eyes open. They were the color of molten amber, burning with an intensity that made her want to look away and lean closer at the same time. Pain and confusion warred in their depths, but underneath it all was something else. Something that made her wolf suddenly sit up and take notice. Recognition. You, he rasped, his voice like gravel. You saved me. I need to go, Arya stammered, trying to pull her leg free. But his grip, even weakened as he was, didn't budge. Please, I can't be found here. Your blood. His eyes dropped to her still bleeding palm, then back to her face. What are you? Nobody, Arya said quickly. Too quickly. I'm nobody. Please, you need to let me go. The Alpha's brow furrowed, and she could see him trying to piece together what had happened. His free hand moved to his chest, fingers probing the wound that should have killed him. Confusion flashed across his features, followed by something that looked like awe. The corruption is gone, he murmured. How did you— A sound in the distance made them both freeze. Voices. Multiple voices, calling out in organized patterns. A search party. Terror flooded Arya's system. If they found her here, with an unknown Alpha, with her blood literally dripping onto the ground. They're looking for you? The Alpha asked, his grip on her ankle loosening slightly. Please, Arya begged, and she hated how her voice cracked. Please let me go. If they find me here— She didn't finish. Didn't need to. Something in her expression must have convinced him because his hand fell away from her ankle. Run, he said softly. But I will find you again. We're not done. Arya didn't wait for him to change his mind. She turned and ran, crashing through the underbrush with abandon. Branches whipped at her face and arms. But she didn't slow down. Couldn't slow down. Her heart hammered against her ribs as the voices grew louder behind her. She burst out of the dense forest into the more familiar territory near the creek, nearly colliding with a patrol group from her pack. There you are! One of the enforcers, a burly man named Derek, grabbed her roughly by the arm. Where have you been? You know the rules about being out after dark. I was just at the creek, Arya gasped, trying to catch her breath. I lost track of time. I'm sorry. Derek's eyes narrowed, taking in her disheveled appearance and the blood on her jacket. What happened to your hand? I fell, Arya said quickly, hiding her palm behind her back. Cut it on a rock. He didn't look convinced, but before he could question her further, another enforcer called out from nearby. Derek, we've got a situation. Unknown Alpha in the territory. Wounded but dangerous. Madison wants everyone back at the compound now. Derek's attention immediately shifted, his grip on Arya's arm tightening. You're coming with us. If there's a rogue Alpha in our territory, everyone needs to be accounted for. Arya nodded mutely, allowing herself to be herded back toward the pack grounds with the others. But her mind was racing, playing the last hour on repeat. The wounded Alpha, his amber eyes, the way her blood had healed wounds that should have been fatal. We're not done, he'd said. And somehow, despite everything, despite the fear and the confusion and the potential consequences, part of Arya hoped he was right. Because for the first time in her cursed, isolated existence, someone had looked at her with something other than disgust. He'd looked at her with recognition, with gratitude, with something that almost felt like belonging. The Silver Moon compound was in chaos when they arrived. Pack members rushed about with weapons and worried expressions, and the air crackled with aggressive energy. Madison stood at the center of it all, her long blonde hair perfect despite the circumstances, issuing orders with the authority of someone born to lead. Double the patrols, she commanded. I want to know who that Alpha is and what he was doing in our territory. And someone tell my father. She stopped mid-sentence as her eyes landed on Arya, still held firmly by Derek's hand. What's she doing here? Found her by the creek, Derek reported. After dark as usual. Madison's perfect lips curved into a cruel smile. How convenient. An unknown Alpha appears in our territory on the same night our cursed little outcast decides to break curfew. She walked toward Arya with the grace of a predator, her eyes glittering with malice. Did you see anything out there, Arya? Or perhaps you were meeting with someone? I didn't see anything, Arya said, forcing her voice to remain steady. I was alone at the creek. Show me your hands. Arya's heart stopped. What? Your hands, Madison repeated, her voice sharp. Derek said you're bleeding. I want to see. Slowly, knowing she had no choice, Arya pulled her hands from behind her back. The cut on her palm had mostly stopped bleeding, but it was still visible, fresh, obvious. Madison grabbed Arya's wrist, yanking her hand up to examine it. Her eyes narrowed. That's a strange cut for someone who just fell on a rock. Almost like you did it deliberately. She leaned in close, her voice dropping to a whisper only Arya could hear. Did you use your filthy blood on something? On someone? I fell, Arya insisted, trying to pull her hand back. That's all. We should lock her up, Madison announced loudly, addressing the gathered pack members. Until we figure out what's going on, the cursed one stays in confinement. For everyone's safety. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the crowd. No one would speak up for her. No one ever did. Derek began dragging Arya toward the holding cells, really just a reinforced shed at the edge of the compound, when a new voice cut through the commotion. That won't be necessary. Everyone turned. Alpha Marcus Silvermoon emerged from the main lodge, his commanding presence instantly silencing the crowd. Madison's father was a large man with silver-streaked dark hair and eyes that missed nothing. He'd led the Silvermoon Pack for 20 years with an iron fist wrapped in diplomatic velvet. Father, Madison began, I heard. Marcus's gaze swept over Arya, lingering on her injured palm for a moment before moving away. Release her, Derek. Arya will answer my questions in private, not subjected to a mob trial. Derek hesitated, looking between his Alpha and Madison before finally releasing Arya's arm. Madison's expression darkened, but she said nothing. Even she wouldn't directly contradict her father in front of the pack. Come, Marcus said simply, turning back toward the lodge. Arya followed on shaking legs, acutely aware of every hostile stare burning into her back. The Alpha's private office was a stark contrast to the chaos outside. Quiet, organized, with walls lined with books and pack history. Marcus settled into the chair behind his massive desk and gestured for Arya to sit across from him. She remained standing. Sitting felt presumptuous, like claiming an equality she didn't possess. Marcus studied her for a long moment, his expression unreadable. Tell me what happened tonight. The truth. I was at the creek, Arya said carefully. I lost track of time. That's all. You're lying. It wasn't an accusation, just a statement of fact. I can hear your heartbeat, Arya. It's racing. You're terrified. But not of me. You're used to being afraid. No, you're afraid of something else. Or someone. Arya said nothing, her eyes fixed on a point just past his shoulder. An unknown Alpha was found injured in our territory tonight, Marcus continued. Badly injured according to the scouts who tracked him. Wounds that should have been fatal. Supernatural corruption that no normal wolf could have survived. He leaned forward slightly. But when our patrols reached him, he was already healing. The corruption was gone. Impossible, they said. Unless... He let the sentence hang in the air between them. Unless someone with very unusual blood had intervened, Marcus finished softly. Someone whose blood has shown the ability to interact with supernatural toxins in ways that shouldn't be possible. Arya's hands clenched at her sides. He knew. Of course he knew. He was the Alpha. He'd been there that day 7 years ago when she'd healed the infected pup. He'd been the one to declare her cursed, to separate her from the rest of the pack for their protection. I don't know anything about an Alpha in the territory, Arya said, which was technically true. She didn't know anything about him, not his name, not his pack, not what had caused his injuries. Marcus sighed, some of the authority leaving his posture. For a moment, he looked tired, old. Arya, I want you to understand something. What you are, what your blood can do. It's not a curse. It's something else. Something the old stories mention, but that most of modern wolf society has forgotten. He paused. You frighten people because you represent something they don't understand. Something powerful. If it's so powerful, why do you let them treat me like dirt? The words were out before Arya could stop them, years of suppressed anger finally breaking through. To her surprise, Marcus didn't react with fury. Instead, he looked almost guilty. Because I'm a coward, he said quietly. Because keeping the peace in the pack means making sacrifices. And you've been the sacrifice for years. He stood, moving to the window that overlooked the compound. But that ends tonight. Tomorrow, you'll leave. Arya's blood ran cold. What? You'll leave the Silvermoon Pack, Marcus repeated. I'm releasing you from the pack bonds. You'll be a free wolf, able to go wherever you choose. You're exiling me? Arya's voice was barely a whisper. Being released from pack bonds was essentially a death sentence. Lone wolves rarely survived without the protection and resources of a pack. They were targets for rogues, for hunters, for any supernatural creature looking for easy prey. I'm freeing you, Marcus corrected. There's a difference. You'll have supplies, money, and I'll provide a letter of safe passage through allied territories. He turned back to face her. The alpha you saved tonight. I have a feeling he'll be looking for you. And when he does, I don't want you trapped here where Madison or the others can use you as a bargaining chip. Understanding dawned slowly. You're protecting me. I'm trying to, Marcus admitted. Perhaps years too late, but I'm trying. That alpha, I don't know who he is yet, but the power I felt from his aura, even unconscious and wounded, he's someone significant. Someone whose gratitude could mean the difference between life and death for you. Arya wanted to argue, to demand why she should trust anything he said after years of allowing her to be mistreated, but the exhaustion was catching up with her, and beneath it all, she recognized a fragile opportunity, freedom, terrifying, uncertain freedom. When? She asked. Dawn tomorrow. Pack your things tonight. I'll have Derek escort you to the border, but only to ensure you make it safely. After that, he spread his hands. After that, your life is your own. Arya nodded slowly, her mind already racing with possibilities and fears. She turned to leave, but Marcus's voice stopped her at the door. Arya, that alpha, if he finds you, listen to what he has to say. Your blood recognized something in him, or you never would have helped. Trust that instinct. She didn't respond, simply slipping out of the office and making her way through the compound toward the small shed she'd called home for the past decade. The hostile stares followed her, but they felt different now, temporary, because tomorrow she'd never have to see these faces again. In her shed, Arya packed her few belongings, some clothes, a worn photo of parents she barely remembered, the small knife that had been returned to her. As she worked, her mind kept returning to amber eyes and a voice rough with pain and promise. We're not done. Somewhere out there, an alpha she'd saved with her cursed blood was healing, recovering, and according to Marcus, he would come looking for her. Arya should have been terrified. Instead, as she lay down on her thin mattress for the last time, she felt something she hadn't experienced in years. Hope. Dawn broke over the Silver Moon territory with fingers of gold and crimson, painting the forest in shades of fire. Arya stood at the border marker, an ancient stone carved with pack symbols, with nothing but a worn backpack and a future as uncertain as morning mist. Derek waited a few feet away, arms crossed, his expression unreadable. He'd been silent during the entire walk from the compound, and Arya was grateful for it. She didn't need his pity or his judgment. She just needed him to leave so she could figure out what came next. This is it, Derek said finally, gesturing to the invisible line that separated Silver Moon territory from the unclaimed lands beyond. Cross that line and you're on your own. No pack protection, no pack resources. He paused, something almost like concern flickering across his weathered features. You sure about this? Arya almost laughed, as if she had a choice. I'm sure. Alpha Marcus wanted me to give you this. Derek pulled an envelope from his jacket, thick with what felt like cash and papers. Said it should get you started somewhere new. There's also contact information for a few neutral packs that might take in a lone wolf, if you're respectful and useful. She took the envelope, tucking it carefully into her backpack. Thanks. Derek nodded once, then turned and walked back toward the compound without another word. Arya watched him go, waiting until he disappeared into the tree line before she allowed herself to breathe. Free. She was actually free. The realization should have been liberating, but all Arya felt was a hollow ache in her chest where the pack bonds had been. Even as cursed and isolated as she'd been, those bonds had been there, a constant hum at the back of her mind that told her she belonged somewhere. Now there was only silence. Arya squared her shoulders and crossed the border. The forest on the other side looked identical to the one she'd left behind, but it felt different. Every sound seemed amplified. The rustle of leaves, the distant call of birds, the crack of branches under her feet. Without pack territory to protect her, she was vulnerable in a way she'd never experienced before. She walked for hours, following a narrow deer trail that wound deeper into the unclaimed wilderness. The spring sun climbed higher, warming her back through her jacket. Her wolf stirred occasionally, restless and uncertain, adjusting to the absence of pack connections. Around midday, Arya stopped at a small stream to refill her water bottle and rest. She was exhausted. The events of the previous night combined with a sleepless few hours packing had left her running on fumes. But stopping for too long felt dangerous. She needed to put distance between herself and Silver Moon territory before a branch snapped behind her. Arya spun around, her heart leaping into her throat, but saw nothing except trees and shadows. The forest had gone quiet, she realized. No birds, no insects, just an oppressive silence that made her skin crawl. "Hello?" she called out, immediately regretting it. Broadcasting her presence was stupid, reckless. The response came not as a voice, but as a presence. Power rolled through the clearing like a physical force, pressing against her skin and making her wolf whimper in recognition. Alpha, a powerful one. He emerged from the shadows like a predator materializing from smoke. Tall, broad-shouldered, with dark hair that fell messily across his forehead, and those unforgettable amber eyes that seemed to see straight through her. He wore different clothes than yesterday, dark jeans and a fitted black shirt that showed the lean muscle of his arms. But there was no mistaking him, the alpha she'd saved. And he looked very much alive, and very much focused entirely on her. "You ran," he said, his voice that same gravel-rough sound from yesterday, but stronger now, healthier. "Before I could properly thank you." Arya's hand drifted toward the small knife at her belt, a pathetic defense against someone of his obvious power, but it made her feel slightly less helpless. "I had to leave. My pack. It was complicated." Complicated. He moved closer, each step measured and deliberate. "Is that what you call being treated like dirt? Being called cursed? Being punished for the crime of existing?" Her breath caught. "How do you—" "I'm an alpha," he said simply. "After you left, I regained enough strength to shift and track you back to your pack. I watched. I listened." His jaw tightened. "I saw how they treat you." Humiliation burned through Arya's chest, bad enough that her pack had witnessed her degradation for years. Now this stranger, this powerful alpha, had seen it too. "You had no right to spy on me. You saved my life." He stopped a few feet away, close enough that she could see the faint scar over his heart where her blood had healed him. "That gives me every right to know who you are, what you are." "I'm nobody," Arya said, repeating the words she'd told him yesterday. "Just a lone wolf now. No pack, no ties. You can thank me and move on with your life." "Nobody," he repeated, something like amusement flickering in those amber eyes. "Is that what you truly believe? That someone with blood powerful enough to cure supernatural corruption is nobody?" "My blood is cursed. Your blood is sacred." The words came out sharp, almost angry. "Ancient. The kind of healing power you possess died out centuries ago, or so everyone believed. But here you are walking around with the blood of the original Luna lines flowing through your veins, and your pack called it a curse." Arya stared at him, unable to process what he was saying. The original Luna lines? That's just legend. Stories. Most legends have roots in truth. He took another step closer, and Arya noticed that his hands were trembling slightly. "When you healed me, something happened. Something I didn't expect and couldn't have predicted." He paused, seeming to struggle with the words. "I need to show you something. Will you let me?" Every instinct screamed at her to run, but curiosity, and something deeper, something her wolf recognized, kept her rooted to the spot. "Show me what?" Instead of answering, the alpha closed his eyes and reached for his shift. The transformation was beautiful and terrifying in equal measure. Bones restructuring, muscles reforming, skin giving way to thick fur the color of midnight. Within seconds, a massive black wolf stood before her, easily twice the size of any normal shifted wolf. His eyes remained the same amber, burning with intelligence and intensity. Then he did something Arya had never witnessed before. The wolf, the alpha, bowed its head low and released a sound that made her heart stop. Not a growl or a howl, but something else. Something ancient and ritualistic that resonated in her bones. The call of recognition. It was a sound from the old stories, from before packs became political entities, and alphas chose their lunas based on strength and lineage. It was the sound an alpha made when they found their true mate, their destined luna, the one person in the world whose soul was bound to theirs by fate itself, and he was making that sound for her. "No," Arya whispered, taking a step back. "No, that's not possible. You don't even know me." The wolf shifted back, the transformation flowing in reverse until the man stood before her again, slightly breathless. "I know enough. When I woke after you healed me, when I took my first conscious breath without corruption burning through my veins, I felt it. The bond. Weak, but unmistakable." He pressed a hand to his chest. "It's here. Connected to you." "You're wrong," Arya said desperately. "True mate bonds are rare. Impossible. They don't just appear because someone heals someone else. Your blood mixed with mine." His voice was gentle now, patient, deep in my wounds, where the corruption had reached my heart. "Your blood, your essence touched mine at the most fundamental level, and my wolf recognized what my conscious mind hadn't yet accepted." He met her eyes steadily. "You're my Luna. Not by choice or politics or arrangement. By fate." Arya's legs felt weak. She sat down hard on a nearby fallen log, her mind reeling. "This is insane. I'm nobody. I'm cursed. I was just exiled from my pack. You were freed from a pack that never deserved you." He knelt before her, bringing himself to eye level. "Listen to me. My name is Kale Nightshade. I'm the alpha of the Nightshade Pack, one of the oldest and strongest packs in North America. And I'm telling you that you, Arya, if the whispers I heard were correct, are my true Luna." "The Nightshade Pack," Arya repeated numbly. She'd heard of them. Everyone had. They were legendary, powerful, with a lineage that stretched back centuries. "Your pack will never accept me. An alpha doesn't just show up with a cursed lone wolf and declare her as Luna." "True mate bonds override everything," Kale interrupted. "It's ancient law. Even my most traditional pack members can't argue with a bond recognized by the old magic." He hesitated. "Though I won't lie to you, it will be complicated. There will be resistance, questions, tests. My pack elders won't make this easy." "Then why?" Arya demanded. "Why go through all that trouble for someone you just met? Someone whose blood everyone fears?" "Because you saved my life," Kale said simply. "Because when I was dying, covered in corruption that should have killed me within the hour, you didn't walk away. You risked yourself, your cursed blood that your pack punished you for, to help a stranger." His hand moved as if to touch her, then stopped. "And because when my wolf recognized you, everything in me knew it was right." Arya wanted to believe him, desperately, but years of rejection and cruelty had taught her that hope was dangerous. What if your wolf is wrong? What if it's just gratitude being confused for something else? "Then we'll discover that together," Kyle said. "But I don't think I'm wrong, and I don't think you believe I'm wrong either." He stood, offering her his hand. "Come with me to Nightshade territory. Meet my pack. Give us, a chance to see if the bond is real. And if your pack rejects me, then I'll reject them." The words were simple but carried absolute conviction. "I've been alpha for 10 years. I've led my pack through wars, plagues, and supernatural threats that would have destroyed lesser packs. But I've never found a Luna, never felt the pull of a true mate bond. If they can't accept the gift of having a true Luna, one with sacred healing blood, then they don't deserve to be called Nightshade." Arya looked at his offered hand, then up at his face. There was no deception there, no hidden cruelty, just honest intensity and a determination that was almost frightening in its absoluteness. Her wolf stirred, pushing against her consciousness with unusual insistence. "Yes," it seemed to say. "Right. Home. I need you to understand something," Arya said slowly. "I'm not used to kindness, or acceptance. If I come with you and this turns out to be a mistake, if your pack treats me the way Silvermoon did," she swallowed hard, "I don't know if I could survive that again." Kyle's expression softened. "Then I'll make sure that never happens. You have my word as Alpha. Anyone who treats you with anything less than the respect due to my Luna will answer to me personally." Arya studied him for a long moment, searching for any sign of doubt or deception. Finding none, she slowly reached out and placed her hand in his. His fingers closed around hers, warm and solid, and the moment their skin touched, something sparked between them. Not painful, just a sudden awareness, a thread of connection that hadn't been there before, thin but real. Kyle felt it too. She could see the recognition in his eyes. The bond, he murmured. It's growing. I haven't agreed to anything permanent, Arya said quickly, even as her traitorous heart raced at the feeling. I'm just coming to see, to figure this out. That's all I'm asking. Kale helped her to her feet, and Arya was acutely aware that he hadn't let go of her hand. My territory is about a day's travel from here. We should start moving. I'd rather not spend the night in unclaimed lands if we can avoid it. They walked in silence at first, Kyle leading the way with the confidence of someone who knew these forests intimately. Arya followed, still processing everything that had happened in the last 24 hours. Yesterday morning, she'd been a punished outcast in Silvermoon. Now she was walking hand in hand with an alpha who claimed she was his true Luna. Life could change terrifyingly fast. Can I ask you something? Arya ventured after they'd been walking for an hour. Anything. Those wounds you had. The corruption. What caused them? Kale's expression darkened. A Shadewalker. Do you know what that is? Arya shook her head. Supernatural creatures from another realm. They feed on wolf essence, draining it slowly until there's nothing left but an empty shell. They've been appearing more frequently in the last year, attacking lone wolves in small packs. He touched his chest absently. I was tracking one that had killed 3 of my pack members. Found it, fought it, and nearly died for my arrogance. But you won? Eventually? It fled after poisoning me, probably assuming I'd die anyway. Would have been right, if not for you. He glanced at her. Your blood didn't just heal the wounds, Arya. It burned the corruption completely out of my system. That should be impossible. Shadewalker poison has no cure. Victims either die or live with the corruption spreading slowly until it drives them mad. Maybe I just got lucky, Arya suggested weakly. Or maybe your blood is exactly what the old legends claim. Sacred healing magic that can cure anything, even supernatural corruption. Kyle squeezed her hand gently. You're not cursed, Arya. You're blessed. Your pack was just too ignorant to see it. They stopped to rest and eat around mid-afternoon. Kyle shared food from his pack. Dried meat, nuts, and surprisingly good bread that he admitted his pack's baker had made. It was better than anything Arya had eaten in years. Tell me about your pack, she said as they ate. What are they like? Will they really be okay with this? Kale considered the question carefully. Nightshade is traditional in many ways. We honor the old customs, the old laws. But we're also pragmatic. We've survived this long because we adapt when necessary. He took a drink from his water bottle. My beta, Marcus, different Marcus from your former alpha, is loyal and will support my decision. My gamma, Sarah, is skeptical of everything but fair. The pack elders, he grimaced. They'll be the challenge. How many elders? 3. Elder Thomas is the oldest, nearly 80, and he treats the old laws like sacred texts. If he accepts you because of the true mate bond, the others will follow. But getting him to that point of acceptance will take work. And if he doesn't accept me, then we'll deal with it. Kale's voice was firm. The true mate bond is recognized in every pack law going back 1,000 years. Even Thomas can't argue with that. Not once the bond is fully established and proven. How do we prove it? The marking ceremony. Kale's voice dropped slightly. When an alpha marks his Luna, completing the mate bond, it's visible to everyone. The mark appears. The bond solidifies. And there's no question of its authenticity. He met her eyes. But that only happens when both parties are ready and willing. I won't force anything on you, Arya. The bond may be fated, but how we handle it is still our choice. Arya appreciated that more than he knew. Thank you. For not assuming, for giving me time. You've been hurt enough. Kyle's expression was gentle. I won't add to that, even accidentally. We'll take this at whatever pace you need. They continued walking as the sun began its descent toward the horizon. The forest gradually changed. The trees grew taller, older, and the air felt different, charged with energy that made Arya's skin tingle. We're entering Nightshade territory, Kale explained. Can you feel it? The pack magic in the land? She could. It was like walking into a warm room after being outside in the cold. Welcoming but intense. Her wolf responded to it, lifting its head with interest. The pack will sense us soon, Kale continued. They'll know I'm bringing someone. There will probably be a welcoming party. A welcoming party? Arya's stomach clenched. How many? She didn't finish because they rounded a bend in the path and found themselves facing exactly that. A welcoming party. At least 20 wolves stood in the clearing ahead, some in human form and some shifted. At the front stood a tall man with steel-gray hair and sharp blue eyes, radiating authority just a step below Kale's. The beta, Arya assumed. Alpha, the man said, his voice carrying relief and concern in equal measure. We've been searching for you since you didn't return yesterday. When we found evidence of a Shadewalker attack, his eyes shifted to Arya, curiosity and suspicion warring in their depths. Who is this? Kyle stepped forward, and his hand tightened around Arya's. Beta Marcus, pack members, this is Arya. She saved my life when the Shadewalker's poison should have killed me. He paused, letting that sink in. And she is my true Luna. The silence that followed was deafening. Then everyone started talking at once. True Luna? But that's... Who is she? What pack? Alpha, are you certain? True bonds are so rare. She's not marked. How can you be sure? Enough! Kyle's voice cracked like thunder, and instantly every voice fell silent. His alpha power filled the clearing, demanding obedience. I am certain. The bond is real, recognized by my wolf during the shift. Arya will be treated with the respect due to your Luna, is that understood? Reluctant nods and murmurs of, yes, Alpha, rippled through the group. The beta, Marcus, stepped forward, his expression more carefully neutral now. Of course, Alpha. Forgive our surprise. It's just unexpected. He turned to Arya, and she saw him actually looking at her now, assessing. You healed our Alpha from Shadewalker corruption? How? My blood has certain properties, Arya said carefully, very aware of how many eyes were on her. I don't fully understand it myself. Her blood is sacred, Kyle said firmly. Descended from the original Luna lines. It can cure supernatural corruption. I'm living proof of that. A woman pushed through the crowd, tall, with auburn hair and intelligent green eyes. I'm Sarah, the Pack Gamma, she introduced herself. And while I don't doubt our Alpha's word, you have to understand this is irregular. We'll need to present you to the Pack Elders. Have the bond verified. I know the protocols, Sarah, Kale interrupted, and we'll follow them. But for tonight, Arya is exhausted. She'll be given a room in the pack house, treated as an honored guest. The formal presentations can wait until tomorrow. Alpha, the Elders will want to meet her immediately, Sarah began. Tomorrow, Kale repeated, his tone leaving no room for argument. That's an order, not a request. Sarah bowed her head in submission, though Arya could see the frustration in the tense line of her shoulders. The group began moving back toward what Arya assumed was the main pack compound, and she found herself surrounded by curious stares and whispered conversations. She kept her eyes down, her hand still locked in Kale's, trying not to think about how many ways this could all go horribly wrong. The Nightshade compound was nothing like Silvermoon's. Where her old pack had a collection of scattered buildings and makeshift structures, Nightshade had actual architecture. A large central lodge built from timber and stone dominated the clearing, surrounded by smaller houses arranged in organized clusters. Gardens, training grounds, even what looked like a school. This was a pack that had been established and thriving for generations. Kyle led her directly to the main lodge, ignoring the crowd that had gathered. Inside, the space was warm and beautifully appointed with carved furniture and woven rugs. A massive fireplace dominated one wall, and the air smelled of pine and something baking. Your room is upstairs, Kale said, guiding her toward a staircase. Third door on the right. It's private, with its own bathroom. You can rest, clean up, and I'll have food sent up. You're not staying? The question came out more nervous than Arya intended. I need to speak with the Elders, prepare them for tomorrow, Kale explained. But I'll be right downstairs if you need anything. And Arya? He waited until she met his eyes. You're safe here. I promise. She wanted to believe him. Okay. Kale showed her to the room, a space easily 3 times larger than her old shed, with an actual bed, dresser, and windows overlooking the forest. It was more than she'd ever had. "Get some rest," Cale said gently. "Tomorrow will be challenging, but we'll face it together." After he left, Arya sat on the edge of the bed, her mind racing. Through the window, she could see pack members going about their evening routines. Children playing, adults talking, the normal life of a functioning pack. And somewhere in this compound, elders were probably discussing whether she was worthy to be their Luna, whether the cursed blood they'd heard about was blessing or threat. Arya touched her chest, feeling for that thin thread of connection to Cale. It was still there, fragile, but real. She'd come this far. Tomorrow she'd find out if fate had truly given her a second chance, or if this was just another cruel joke in a life full of them. Either way, she'd face it with her head high. She was done being treated like she was nothing. Morning came too quickly. Arya had barely slept, her mind replaying every moment of the previous day until the sky began to lighten outside her window. Now she sat on the edge of the bed, dressed in the only clean clothes she had left, simple jeans and a faded blue shirt, and tried to calm the anxiety churning in her stomach. Today she would meet the pack elders. Today they would decide if she was worthy of being Cale's Luna, or if she'd be cast out again. A soft knock on the door made her jump. "Come in," she called, expecting Kyle. Instead, a young woman entered carrying a tray of food. She had warm brown skin and kind eyes, though Arya could see the curiosity burning behind them. "Good morning," the woman said cheerfully. "I'm Elena, one of the pack's kitchen staff. Alpha Cale asked me to bring you breakfast and to tell you he'll be up in an hour to escort you to the elder meeting." She set the tray on a small table by the window. "I also brought you something else." Elena pulled a garment bag from behind her back. "The Alpha thought you might want something more formal for the meeting. This is from his late mother's collection. She was about your size." Arya stood, approaching the bag hesitantly. "His mother's clothes? I couldn't—" "She would have wanted you to have them," Elena said gently. "Luna Catherine was all about making people feel welcome. And between you and me," she lowered her voice conspiratorially, "showing up in formal attire will make a better impression on Elder Thomas. He's very traditional about these things." After Elena left, Arya opened the garment bag to find a beautiful dress in deep forest green. The fabric was soft and well-made, with delicate embroidery along the neckline. It was easily the nicest piece of clothing she'd ever touched. She ate breakfast, fresh fruit, eggs, and bread that melted in her mouth, then carefully put on the dress. It fit perfectly, and when she looked at herself in the mirror, she barely recognized the woman staring back. She looked dignified, like someone who might actually belong here. The knock came exactly an hour later. This time it was Cale, and the expression on his face when he saw her made her breath catch. "You look beautiful," he said softly. "That color suits you." "Elena said it was your mother's," Arya replied, smoothing the fabric nervously. "I hope that's okay." "More than okay." Something sad and warm flickered in his eyes. "My mother would have loved you. She always believed in the old bonds, the old magic." He offered his arm. "Are you ready?" "No," Arya admitted. "But I don't think waiting will make me any more ready." They walked through the lodge together, and Arya noticed how pack members stopped to stare. Some with curiosity, some with suspicion, but none with the outright hostility she'd grown used to at Silvermoon. It was different, but still unnerving. The Elder Council met in a room at the back of the lodge, a circular space with high ceilings and walls lined with pack history. Portraits of past alphas and lunas watched from their frames, and Arya felt the weight of all that legacy pressing down on her. 3 elders sat in high-backed chairs arranged in a semicircle. The one in the center, a man with snow-white hair and eyes sharp as broken glass, had to be Thomas. The other 2, a stern-looking woman and a younger man with graying temples, flanked him on either side. Beta Marcus and Gamma Sarah stood off to the side, observing. "Alpha Cale," Elder Thomas said, his voice surprisingly strong for his age. "You've brought your guest." "I've brought my Luna," Cale corrected firmly, his hand tightening on Arya's. "Arya, these are our pack elders, Thomas, Margaret, and James. They advise the pack on matters of tradition and law." "A Luna," Thomas repeated, his gaze fixing on Arya with uncomfortable intensity. You claim a true mate bond with this girl, yet she bears no mark. She comes from no known pack lineage. She appears on our doorstep with convenient timing and a story of healing powers. He leaned forward. Forgive me, Alpha, but this requires more than your word. My word should be enough, Kale said, his voice dropping dangerously. I am your Alpha. When I tell you I've found my true Luna, we do not question your authority, Elder Margaret interrupted smoothly. We question the circumstances. True mate bonds are sacred, yes, but they're also extremely rare. In my 70 years, I've only witnessed 2 genuine true mate bonds. Both times, the recognition was instant and undeniable to everyone present. Her eyes shifted to Arya. Yet you show no mark, no visible bond. How are we to verify this claim? Arya felt Kyle tense beside her, his alpha power beginning to leak into the room. She touched his arm gently, stopping him. May I speak? She asked quietly. Thomas raised an eyebrow. By all means. Arya took a breath, forcing herself to meet the elder's gaze. You're right to be suspicious. I would be too, if I were in your position. I'm nobody, an exile from a pack that considered me cursed. I have no lineage, no status, nothing to recommend me as Luna material. She paused. But I saved your Alpha's life, my blood, this cursed, sacred, whatever it is blood, healed wounds that should have killed him, and when he shifted after healing, his wolf recognized something in me. A bond neither of us asked for or expected. Your blood. Elder James spoke for the first time, his voice thoughtful. Tell us about this blood. What makes it special? Arya hesitated, old shame rising in her throat. But she pushed it down. These people deserve the truth. It can heal supernatural corruption. I don't know why or how it works. When I was 7, I healed a pup who'd been infected with rabid fox poison. The healers had given up on him, but my blood cured him completely. My old pack called it a curse because they didn't understand it. Or perhaps, Thomas said slowly, they feared it. He exchanged glances with the other elders. There are old stories, ancient tales of the first Lunas, who possessed healing blood powerful enough to cure any wound, any poison, any corruption. The bloodline was thought to have died out centuries ago. That's what I told her, Kale said. The sacred Luna bloodline. It would explain everything. The healing power, why my wolf recognized her so strongly. Elder Margaret stood, approaching Arya with measured steps. If this is true, if you truly carry that ancient blood, there would be a way to verify it. She pulled a small knife from her robes. With your permission, I'd like to test something. Arya's heart raced, but she nodded. What do you need? A drop of your blood. Margaret produced a small vial containing dark liquid. This is diluted Shadewalker poison. Not enough to harm anyone, but enough to corrupt. If your blood truly carries the sacred healing magic, it will neutralize the poison completely. If not, she shrugged, nothing will happen. And if it does neutralize it? Arya asked. Then we'll have proof that you're more than just a convenient stranger, Thomas said. The sacred bloodline would give credence to the true mate bond claim. Ancient magic recognizing ancient magic. Arya looked at Kale, who nodded encouragingly. She held out her hand, and Elder Margaret made a small cut on her finger, clean and precise. A single drop of blood fell into the vial. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the dark liquid began to glow with soft blue light, the same light Arya had seen when healing Kale. The poison writhed in the vial like something alive, then dissolved completely, leaving only clear water behind. The room fell silent. By the old laws, Elder Margaret whispered, staring at the vial. It's true. The sacred bloodline lives. Elder Thomas stood slowly, his expression transformed from suspicion to something like awe. In all my years, I never thought I'd witness this. He approached Arya, and this time when he looked at her, it was with respect. Child, do you understand what you are? What you represent? I'm just Arya, she said weakly. You're far more than that. Thomas turned to Kale. If she truly is your Luna, if the bond is genuine, then you must complete the marking ceremony as soon as possible. A Luna with sacred blood cannot be left unmarked and unprotected. She'll be a target for every supernatural creature and ambitious wolf who wants to claim that power. I've already told Arya we'll move at her pace. Kyle said firmly. I won't force. Alpha, Sarah interrupted from the side of the room, her voice urgent. We have a situation. Everyone turned as Sarah approached, her expression grim. A messenger just arrived from Silver Moon Pack. They're claiming that Arya stole valuable Pack property when she left. They're demanding her return, or compensation. Arya's blood ran cold. That's not true. Alpha Marcus released me. He gave me supplies, and they're saying you took something else, Sarah continued. Something related to your healing blood. They're claiming you're dangerous, that your blood needs to be contained and studied, and that you fled before they could properly secure it. That's ridiculous, Kale growled. She was exiled. They can't claim her back now. They're not claiming her back, Elder James said quietly, reading over Sarah's shoulder at the message she carried. They're claiming ownership of her blood. They're saying she's Pack property by virtue of being born into Silvermoon, and that her blood belongs to them. Rage unlike anything Arya had ever felt surged through her. I'm not property. My blood isn't property. They exiled me. They gave up any claim they had. Legally, they may have a point, Elder Margaret said reluctantly. Pack law is complicated when it comes to members with unique abilities. If they can prove they attempted to study your blood for the good of the Pack, and you fled with that knowledge. She fled because they were abusing her. Kale's voice shook with fury. I saw it myself. She was treated worse than an Omega, punished for existing. This is just them realizing they threw away something valuable and trying to get it back. Nevertheless, Thomas said, we must respond appropriately. If we ignore their claim, it could be seen as theft. Other packs would have grounds to challenge us. So, what do we do? Arya asked, trying to keep the tremor out of her voice. Before anyone could answer, another pack member burst into the room. Alpha, Silver Moon wolves at the border. At least a dozen, led by their beta. They're demanding to speak with you. Kyle's expression turned thunderous. Everyone stay here. I'll handle this. No, Arya said, surprising herself. I'm coming with you. This is about me. I should face it. Arya, I've spent my whole life letting other people decide my fate, she said firmly. Not anymore. If Silver Moon wants to make claims about me, they can do it to my face. Pride flickered across Kale's features. Very well, but you stay close to me. Understood? They walked to the border together, accompanied by Marcus, Sarah, and a dozen Nightshade warriors. The tension in the air was thick enough to choke on. Derek stood at the border marker, and Arya's stomach twisted at the sight of him. Behind him stood 10 more Silver Moon warriors, all armed and alert. Alpha Kale, Derek said formally. I'm here on behalf of Alpha Marcus Silvermoon. We've come to retrieve stolen property. You mean a person, Kale corrected coldly. Arya is not property, and she wasn't stolen. Your Alpha released her from pack bonds. I have witnesses. The release was given under false pretenses, Derek replied. Arya failed to disclose the full extent of her abilities. Her blood represents significant value to our pack, value she attempted to steal by leaving. You called my blood a curse, Arya shouted, unable to contain herself. You punished me for it, isolated me, treated me like I was diseased. Now you want to claim it's valuable? Derek's expression remained neutral, but Arya saw the flicker of guilt in his eyes. Pack law is clear. Unique abilities developed within a pack belong to that pack. You should have reported the full extent of your healing powers to the Alpha. I didn't even understand them myself, Arya protested. And Alpha Marcus knew. He was there when I healed that pup years ago. If he wanted to study my blood, he had a decade to do it. Be that as it may, Derek continued, Silver Moon Pack demands either your return for proper documentation and study, or compensation equivalent to the value of sacred healing blood. We estimate that value at approximately $500,000. The number was absurd, clearly designed to be unpayable. Kale laughed, but there was no humor in it. You're insane if you think I'm paying that. And Arya isn't going anywhere near your territory. Then you're harboring stolen property, Derek said. By pack law, we have the right to retrieve it by force if necessary. Try it, Kale said softly, dangerously. I'd love to see how that works out for you. The two groups faced off, and Arya could feel violence brewing in the air like a coming storm. This was going to turn into a bloodbath, all because of her. Wait, she said suddenly. there's another option. Everyone turned to look at her. Pack law says unique abilities belong to the pack where they developed, right? Arya looked at Derek. But the law also says that when a wolf is marked by an alpha from another pack, they become a full member of that new pack. All ties to the old pack are severed completely. Derek's eyes narrowed. You're not marked. Not yet, Arya agreed. But if Alpha Kale marks me, completing our mate bond, then I become Nightshade pack. And my blood, my abilities, they become Nightshade property. Silvermoon would have no legal claim. That would require completing a full marking ceremony, Derek pointed out. That takes time, preparation. We're not leaving until this is resolved. Then stay and witness it, Kale said, understanding dawning on his face. He turned to Arya. Are you sure? We talked about taking time, about not rushing. They're not giving us that time, Arya said quietly. And honestly, I'm tired of running. Tired of being claimed like I'm an object to be traded. She met his eyes. If the bond is real, if I'm truly your Luna, then let's make it official. Let's end this. Kyle studied her face for a long moment, searching for doubt. If we do this, there's no going back. The marking is permanent. Good, Arya said. I don't want to go back. I want to move forward. With you, with Nightshade, with a future where I'm not treated like I'm cursed. Something warm and fierce blazed in Kale's eyes. He turned to Derek. You want to witness the ceremony? Fine. We'll perform it tonight under the full moon. You and your wolves can stay at the border as observers. Tomorrow morning, Arya will be officially Nightshade Pack, and you'll leave empty-handed. Derek hesitated, clearly not having expected this turn of events. But pack law was pack law. He couldn't argue with the solution. Very well, we'll witness. But if the marking doesn't take, if the bond proves false, she comes back with us. It will take, Kyle said confidently, because she's mine. My true Luna. They returned to the compound to prepare, leaving the Silvermoon wolves at the border under guard. The elders convened immediately to arrange the ceremony, and Arya found herself swept into a whirlwind of preparation. Elena helped her bathe and dress in ceremonial robes, white with silver embroidery, traditional for a Luna during marking. As they worked, Elena chattered nervously about what to expect. The marking happens during the shift, she explained, fastening the robe. When both wolves are present, the alpha bites the Luna's neck, gently. It doesn't hurt, they say, just a pressure. The mark appears instantly, visible to everyone. It's supposed to be the most intimate, sacred moment between mates. Arya's hands trembled as she touched her neck. This was happening, really happening. Are you scared? Elena asked gently. Terrified, Arya admitted, but also, ready? I know that doesn't make sense. It makes perfect sense. You're choosing your future instead of having it chosen for you. Elena smiled. That's brave. As sunset approached, Kale found Arya in her room. He'd changed into ceremonial clothes too, dark pants and a shirt embroidered with the Nightshade Pack symbol. How are you feeling? He asked. Like I'm about to jump off a cliff and hope there's water at the bottom, Arya said honestly. Kyle moved closer, taking her hands in his. I want you to know something. This isn't just about solving the Silvermoon problem. Yes, the marking will protect you legally, but… He paused, seeming to search for words. When I mark you tonight, it's because I want to. Because my wolf has been howling for this since the moment I recognized you. Because having you here, even for just a day, has felt more right than anything in my life. Tears pricked Arya's eyes. I'm not cursed. You're blessed, Kale said firmly. Sacred. And you're mine, if you'll have me. I will, Arya whispered. I choose this. I choose you. The ceremony took place in a clearing deep in Nightshade territory, under a moon so full and bright it seemed close enough to touch. The entire pack gathered in a circle around the ceremonial space, and at the border, visible in the distance, the Silvermoon witnesses watched. Elder Thomas presided, speaking words in the old language that Arya didn't understand but felt in her bones. Then Kyle stepped forward, removing his shirt. Are you ready? He asked quietly. Arya nodded, removing her outer robe to reveal a simple white dress beneath. Ready. They shifted together. The transformation was different this time, more powerful, charged with the energy of the full moon and the gathered pack. Arya's wolf emerged with unusual ease, as if it had been waiting for this moment. Kale's wolf was magnificent, midnight black with those burning amber eyes. He approached slowly, respectfully, and Arya's wolf didn't shy away. Instead, it bowed its head in submission and trust. The bite, when it came, was gentle, acclaiming, not an injury. Arya felt pressure on her neck, a brief sting, and then everything. The bond exploded between them like lightning, no longer a thin thread but a flood of connection. She could feel Kale, his strength, his determination, his fierce protective love, and underneath it all, the absolute certainty that this was right. When they shifted back, Arya touched her neck with trembling fingers. She couldn't see the mark, but she could feel it, a warm, tingling presence that pulsed with power. "Let them see," Elder Thomas commanded. Kale helped Arya stand, turning her so the gathered pack could witness the mark. A collective gasp went up from the crowd. "The sacred mark," someone whispered. "It's glowing." Arya looked down at her reflection in a ceremonial mirror that Sarah held up. The mark on her neck was indeed glowing with soft blue light, the same light her healing blood produced. The mark itself was intricate, a wolf surrounded by healing symbols, clearly visible even in the moonlight. "The bond is verified," Elder Thomas announced. "Arya is Luna of Nightshade Pack. Her blood, her abilities, her very essence belongs to us now. Silvermoon has no claim." In the distance, Arya saw Derek turn and lead his wolves away. It was over. She was free. Finally, truly free. Kale wrapped his arms around her from behind, resting his chin on her shoulder. "How do you feel?" "Complete," Arya whispered. "For the first time in my life, I feel complete." The pack celebrated late into the night, but Arya barely noticed. She was too focused on the bond, on exploring this new connection to Kale that let her feel his emotions, sense his presence even when he was across the clearing. Later, much later, as the celebration wound down and pack members began drifting home, Sarah approached them with an urgent expression. "Alpha, Luna, we have a problem. The scouts just reported something disturbing." She handed Kale a piece of paper. "There have been 3 more Shadewalker attacks in the last week, all within 50 miles of our territory. And the pattern, they're circling us, getting closer." Kale's expression darkened as he read the report. "They're hunting something. Or someone. You," Arya said suddenly, the realization hitting her like ice water. "The Shadewalker you fought, it didn't run away because you won. It ran because I healed you, because it sensed my blood. Sacred blood that can neutralize their poison," Kale said grimly. "You're right. To a Shadewalker, you're either the greatest threat or the greatest prize." "We need to increase patrols," Sarah said. "Double the guards, establish a protective perimeter around the Luna, and prepare for battle," Kale finished. "Because they're coming. The question is when, not if." Arya looked at the mark on her neck in the mirror, still glowing faintly. She'd thought the marking would solve her problems, would finally give her the safety and acceptance she'd always craved. Instead, it seemed she'd just stepped into a much larger, much more dangerous story. But as Kale's hand found hers, their bond humming with strength and certainty, Arya realized something important. She wasn't facing this alone anymore. Whatever came next, they would face it together. The attack came 3 days later, just before dawn. Arya woke to the sound of the alarm, a haunting howl that echoed through the compound, raising every wolf from sleep. Beside her, Kale was already moving, pulling on clothes with practiced efficiency. "Stay here," he commanded, his alpha voice brooking no argument. "Lock the door. Don't open it for anyone except me or—" "I'm not hiding while your pack fights," Arya interrupted, climbing out of bed. The bond between them pulsed with his concern and her determination. "My blood is what they want. I should be there." "Exactly why you should stay hidden," Kyle argued, but his eyes showed he already knew he'd lost this fight. 3 days of being bonded had taught him that his Luna was as stubborn as she was brave. "Fine, but you stay close to me. No heroics." They rushed downstairs to find the main lodge in controlled chaos. Warriors were arming themselves, healers were preparing medical supplies, and Sarah was coordinating defense positions with the efficiency of someone who'd done this before. Report, Kale demanded. 4 Shadewalkers, Sarah said grimly. Maybe more. They breached the eastern perimeter 20 minutes ago. The patrol engaged, but they're being pushed back. These things are stronger than the one you fought, Alpha. Because they're hunting together, Marcus added, joining them with a sword strapped to his back. Shadewalkers are usually solitary. A coordinated pack of them means someone's controlling them, Kale finished. Someone who wants Arya badly enough to organize an attack. He turned to Arya, his expression torn between protective fury and trust. Your blood can hurt them. If it can heal supernatural corruption, maybe it can also cause it. Could you weaponize it somehow? Arya's mind raced. She'd only ever used her blood to heal, but the theory made sense. If her blood could neutralize Shadewalker poison, maybe it could poison them in return. I don't know. I've never tried, but I'm willing to find out. The healers have silver knives, Elena said, appearing with a medical bag. She'd volunteered to stay close to Arya, both as assistant and guard. Silver conducts magic better. If you're going to experiment, use one of those. Another howl split the air, closer this time. Through the windows, Arya could see shapes moving in the pre-dawn darkness, twisted, shadowy forms that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. They're at the inner perimeter, Marcus reported, checking his communication device. We need to move now. They poured out of the lodge into organized chaos. Nightshade warriors had formed defensive lines, using silver weapons and wolfsbane barriers to slow the Shadewalkers' advance. But the creatures were relentless, flowing through defenses like water, their touch leaving corruption wherever they made contact. Arya watched in horror as a young warrior stumbled back from an encounter, dark veins spreading from a wound on his arm. He collapsed, convulsing, as the poison worked through his system. "Get him to the healers!" Sarah commanded, but Arya was already moving. "Wait!" She skidded to her knees beside the fallen warrior, pulling the silver knife Elena had given her. "Let me try something." She cut her palm, the pain familiar now, and let her blood drip directly onto the corrupted wound. The blue glow appeared instantly, and the dark veins began to recede. Within seconds, the warrior's convulsions stopped, his breathing steadying. "It works," he gasped, staring at his healed arm in amazement. The pain, it's gone. But there was no time to celebrate. A Shadewalker burst through the defensive line, its form shifting and writhing like smoke-given substance. It moved with impossible speed, heading straight for Arya with single-minded purpose. Kale intercepted it, his shifted form colliding with the creature in a clash of fur and shadow. They tumbled across the ground, Kale's jaws snapping at the thing's neck while it raked claws across his side. Arya felt his pain through the bond and acted on instinct. She rushed forward, her bleeding palm extended, and touched the Shadewalker directly. The effect was instantaneous and devastating. The creature shrieked, a sound like metal tearing, and recoiled from her touch. Where her blood had made contact, its form began to dissolve, smoking and burning as if exposed to acid. It writhed in agony before dissipating completely into nothingness. Silence fell over the battlefield for a shocked moment. "Her blood destroys them," someone whispered. "The Luna can kill Shadewalkers." The remaining 3 creatures seemed to sense this development. They pulled back, regrouping at the edge of the clearing. Then, in perfect synchronization, they all turned toward Arya. "They're going to rush her all at once," Marcus realized. "Fall back, protect the Luna." But Arya stepped forward instead, an idea forming. "Kyle, I need you to trust me. Can you shift and let me ride?" "What?" "Arya, no. They want me, right? Then let's give them a target they can't resist." She met his eyes through the bond, letting him feel her determination. "But on our terms. Trust me." Kale shifted, his massive wolf form crouching low enough for Arya to climb onto his back. The moment she was secure, he launched forward with a speed that stole her breath. They raced toward the Shadewalkers, and as predicted, the creatures couldn't resist. They surged forward to meet them, claws extended, hungry for the prize. At the last second, Kyle veered sharply, running parallel to the creatures rather than into them. Arya leaned down, her bleeding palm extended, and dragged her hand across the nearest Shadewalker's form. It exploded into smoke with that same terrible shriek. They repeated the maneuver with the second creature, Kale's movements perfectly synchronized with Arya's. The bond between them sang with shared purpose, each knowing instinctively what the other needed. The third Shadewalker was smarter. It feinted, dodged, staying just out of reach while trying to strike at Kale's legs. But Arya had learned. She squeezed more blood from her palm, flicking it outward in droplets. Where the droplets landed on the creature, holes burned through its form. It staggered, weakening, and Kale took the opportunity to pounce. He pinned it down while Arya pressed both bloody palms against its core. The Shadewalker dissolved with a final agonized wail. Arya slid off Kale's back, suddenly exhausted. Her palms were still bleeding, and she'd lost more blood than was probably wise. The clearing spun slightly as she tried to stand. Kale shifted back, catching her before she could fall. "You're amazing," he murmured, pressing his forehead against hers. "Reckless and terrifying, but amazing." "Did we get them all?" Arya asked weakly. "4 confirmed destroyed," Sarah reported, approaching with a medical kit. "Let's get those hands bandaged before you pass out from blood loss." But as the healers worked on Arya's palms, wrapping them in clean bandages, a new sound cut through the celebration. A slow clap, mocking and deliberate. Everyone spun to face the tree line, where a figure emerged from the shadows. She was tall and elegant, with pale skin and hair so black it seemed to absorb light. Her eyes glowed with an unnatural amber, and the air around her shimmered with power. She wore modern clothes, dark jeans and a leather jacket, but moved with an ancient, predatory grace. "Impressive," the woman said, her voice like honey laced with poison. "The sacred blood lives, and it's even more potent than the legends claimed." "How delightful!" "Who are you?" Kale demanded, stepping protectively in front of Arya. "My name is Morgana," the woman said with a slight bow, "and I'm the one who sent those Shadewalkers to test your new Luna." I must say she exceeded expectations. Her glowing eyes fixed on Arya with hungry interest. "Sacred healing blood that can both cure and destroy supernatural corruption. Do you have any idea how rare you are? How valuable?" "She's not for sale," Kale growled, his power flooding the clearing. Every Nightshade wolf responded, taking aggressive stances. "Of course not," Morgana agreed easily. "I wouldn't dream of buying what I can simply take." She raised one hand, and the temperature dropped 20 degrees. "You see, I've been searching for someone like Arya for a very long time. Someone whose blood could cure a condition I've been suffering from. And now that I've found her, I'm not leaving without her." "Over my dead body," Kale snarled. "That can be arranged," Morgana replied pleasantly, "though I'd prefer to avoid unnecessary bloodshed. So here's my offer. Give me the girl, and I'll leave your pack in peace. Refuse, and I'll return with an army that will make 4 Shadewalkers look like a minor inconvenience." "Arya is my Luna," Kale said, each word hard as steel. "My true mate, marked and bonded. There is no offer you could make that would convince me to hand her over." "True mate bonds," Morgana mused. "How romantic. But tell me, Alpha, will that bond be worth it when your pack lies in ruins? When your people are dead or corrupted? When your territory is a wasteland?" She smiled, showing teeth that were slightly too sharp. "Because that's what will happen if you refuse me. I have resources you can't imagine. Power that would make your ancestors weep." Arya felt Kale's rage through the bond, felt him preparing to attack despite the overwhelming power radiating from this woman. But she also felt his fear, not for himself, but for his pack, for her. "Wait," Arya said, stepping forward despite Kale's attempt to hold her back. "What condition? What do you need my blood for?" Morgana's expression shifted to something almost vulnerable. "I'm dying, slowly, painfully, from a corruption that's been eating away at my essence for 3 centuries. I'm not entirely human, you see, nor entirely supernatural. I'm something in between, something that was created rather than born, and that creation came with a price. A corruption that no magic, no healer, no power in this world has been able to cure." "But you think my blood can," Arya said, understanding dawning. "I know it can," Morgana corrected. "I've seen what it did to those Shadewalkers. If it can destroy supernatural corruption in them, it can heal it in me." She took a step closer. Please, I'm not asking you to become my prisoner. Just help me. One healer to one patient. Save me and I'll leave you and your pack in peace forever. You have my word. The word of someone who just threatened to destroy us? Kyle said skeptically. The word of someone desperate enough to try anything, Morgana countered. Believe me or don't, but consider this. I could have attacked while you were weak from the Shadewalker fight. I could have used more creatures, overwhelmed your defenses. But I didn't, because I'm hoping we can resolve this peacefully. Arya looked at Kale, their bond humming with shared uncertainty. Through his eyes, she could see the calculation, the risk of trusting Morgana versus the risk of making her an enemy. Let me see it, Arya said suddenly. The corruption. If I'm going to help you, I need to see what we're dealing with. Morgana hesitated, then slowly unbuttoned her jacket and lifted her shirt. The skin beneath was covered in dark veins, pulsing with sickly energy. The corruption was everywhere, spreading from her heart outward like a malignant spider web. It's reached my core, Morgana said quietly. I have weeks at best, maybe days. She met Arya's eyes, and for the first time, Arya saw genuine fear there. I don't want to die. Not after surviving this long. Arya's healer instincts warred with her caution. This woman had threatened her pack, had sent creatures to attack them, but she was also dying, desperate, and asking for help. If I do this, Arya said slowly, you swear on whatever power you possess that you'll leave Nightshade Pack alone? That you'll never threaten us or harm us again? I swear it, Morgana said immediately. On my true name, on the magic that created me, I swear no harm will come to you or yours by my hand. Kyle grabbed Arya's arm. You can't be seriously considering this. It could be a trap. It could be, Arya agreed. But if she's telling the truth, and I refuse to help, we'll have a powerful enemy who has nothing left to lose. She touched his face gently. We're healers, Kyle. Or I am, at least. If I can help someone, even someone who threatened us, shouldn't I try? You're too good, Kyle murmured. But there was pride in his voice alongside the worry. Too compassionate for your own safety. That's why you need me, Arya said with a small smile. To balance out your excessive protectiveness. She turned back to Morgana. I'll try to heal you, but here, now, with my pack watching. And if you make one wrong move, you have my word, Morgana said, relief flooding her features. Thank you. They set up in the center of the clearing, healers standing by with supplies while warriors maintained a careful perimeter. Morgana sat on the ground, and Arya knelt beside her, Elena helping to unwrap her still healing palms. This is going to require a lot of blood, Arya warned. The corruption is extensive. I might pass out. I'll catch you, Kyle promised, positioning himself right behind her. Arya cut her palms again, deeper this time, and pressed them directly against the worst of Morgana's corruption, right over her heart. The blue glow appeared immediately, brighter than ever before. Morgana gasped, her back arching as the healing magic flooded her system. The dark veins began to recede, slowly at first, then faster as Arya's blood worked its way through the corruption. But this corruption was old, deeply rooted, and it fought back. Arya felt it resisting, trying to spread faster than she could heal. She pressed harder, willing more power into her blood, more determination into her healing. The bond with Kale suddenly flared to life, and she felt his strength flowing into her through their connection. Not his blood, but his will, his alpha power, supporting and amplifying her efforts. Together, they were stronger than the corruption. It took nearly an hour, with Arya having to cut her palms 3 more times to maintain the blood flow. But eventually, the last of the dark veins dissolved. Morgana's skin cleared, returning to a healthy pale rather than the sickly gray it had been. Morgana opened her eyes, normal amber now, no longer glowing, and stared at Arya in wonder. It's gone. For the first time in 300 years, I can't feel it eating away at me. Tears tracked down her face. You actually did it. Arya tried to respond but found she couldn't form words. The clearing was spinning again, worse than before, and she could barely feel her hands. She'd lost too much blood, pushed herself too far. She felt Kale catch her as she fell backward, heard him shouting for healers. The last thing she saw before darkness claimed her was Morgana's face, transformed by gratitude and genuine wonder. Then nothing. When Arya woke, it was to find herself back in her room, sunlight streaming through the windows. Kale sat in a chair beside the bed, his hand holding hers, his eyes closed in exhausted sleep. Through the bond, she could feel his relief at sensing her consciousness returning. His eyes opened immediately. "You scared me," he said softly, squeezing her hand. "You were out for 2 days. The healers said you'd lost nearly half your blood volume." "Morgana?" Arya croaked, her throat dry. "Gone," Kyle reported. "She stayed long enough to make sure you'd be okay, then left. But before she did, she gave us this." He held up a crystal pendant on a silver chain. "She said it's a protection talisman. If we ever need her help, we break it, and she'll come. A debt repaid, she called it." "So she kept her word." "She did," Kale admitted. "Against all my expectations, she actually kept her word." He helped Arya sit up, propping pillows behind her. "The pack is calling you a hero, you know. The Luna who saved her alpha, killed Shadewalkers, and showed mercy to an enemy. You're already the subject of at least 3 different songs." Arya laughed weakly. "Songs? Really?" "Really." Kale's expression grew serious. "But Arya, you can't keep doing this. Risking yourself, giving so much of your blood. Sacred healing powers or not, you're still mortal. You can still die." "I know," Arya said. "But I also know I can't just hide when people need help. It's not who I am." "I know," Kyle sighed. "And it's one of the reasons I love you, even though it terrifies me." Arya's breath caught. "Love?" "Love," Kyle confirmed, bringing her bandaged hand to his lips. "Completely, irrevocably, frustratingly in love with my brave, stubborn, compassionate Luna." "I love you too," Arya whispered, the truth of it resonating through their bond. "Even though you're overprotective and bossy, I prefer cautious and authoritative," Kyle said with a slight smile. A knock on the door interrupted them. Sarah entered, followed by the 3 elders. "Luna Arya," Elder Thomas said formally, "we've come to officially recognize your place in the pack. Your actions over the past week, saving our alpha, destroying the Shadewalkers, showing mercy even to an enemy, have proven beyond doubt that you are exactly the Luna we need." Elder Margaret stepped forward with a silver crown, delicate and beautiful with moonstone accents. "This belonged to Kale's mother, Catherine. She would have wanted you to have it." They placed the crown gently on Arya's head, and even exhausted and bandaged, Arya felt the weight of responsibility and honor it represented. "You are Luna of Nightshade Pack," Elder James declared, "sacred blood-bearer, healer, warrior, and heart of this pack. We pledge our loyalty and our protection. And we pledge to never call you cursed again," Elder Thomas added with a slight smile, "because it's clear you're anything but." After the elders left, Sarah lingered. "There's something else you should know. Word of what happened here is spreading. Other packs are hearing about the Luna with sacred blood who can destroy supernatural threats. We've already received 3 requests for you to visit their territories, help with various corruption cases." "She's not a traveling healer," Kale said firmly. "But I could be," Arya said thoughtfully. "Not all the time, but if there are people suffering from supernatural corruption who could be helped by my blood, shouldn't I try?" "See?" Kyle looked at Sarah with exasperation. "Told you she'd say that." "We'll establish protocols," Sarah suggested. "Carefully vetted requests, security measures, limits on how much blood you can give in a time period. You can help people without destroying yourself." Arya nodded, relief flooding through her. This felt right, using her gift to help others, but in a controlled way that wouldn't leave her pack vulnerable. Over the next few days, as Arya recovered, life in Nightshade Pack settled into a new rhythm. Pack members who'd once viewed her with suspicion now greeted her with respect and genuine affection. Children asked to see the glowing mark that proved she was their Luna. Warriors sought her blessing before patrols. And through it all, the bond with Kyle grew stronger, deeper, until Arya couldn't imagine existence without it. One evening, as they walked through the forest together, Arya reflected on how much had changed in such a short time. "Do you ever regret it?" she asked Kyle. "Taking in a cursed stranger who brought nothing but trouble to your doorstep?" Kyle stopped. turning to face her with such intensity that her breath caught. Never. Not for 1 second. You brought light to my life, Arya. Purpose. Love. Yes. You also brought challenges, but we faced them together. He cupped her face gently. You were never cursed. You were always meant for greatness. All you needed was people who could see it. And you did, Arya said, tears pricking her eyes. You saw me when everyone else saw a burden. I saw my Luna, Kale corrected. My true mate. My future. He kissed her softly. And I'll keep seeing you that way for the rest of our lives. As they stood there in the fading light, bound together by fate and choice, Arya finally understood what home truly meant. Not a place, but a person. Not acceptance from many, but unconditional love from one. She was Luna of Nightshade Pack. She was Kale's true mate. She was sacred, not cursed. And she was finally, gloriously home.